The Portland Trailblazers ended the drama, ended the mystery before the season even ended itself on Sunday by announcing that Chauncey Billups has signed a multi-year extension with the team. Shocking some, but not all. Welcome to the Blazer Focus podcast. I'm Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian OregonLive, joined by Craig Birnbach. Craig, I'm not going to lie to you, bro. Straight up. I'm so happy they got this done. I'm so happy. There's not a coach. There's a lot of reporters talking about no coaching search. For me, I think it's the right decision. I didn't want to deal with the drama and just all the rigmarole that will come from not bringing him back. So I was happy this morning when I saw the release. Let's just dive right into this. You and I talked last week. We both agreed that it looked like this was going to happen after Cronin got his extension, because that was sort of the first shoe to drop. And on this show, I talked about how I was hearing some things, that there could be some talks this week. There were definitely talks this week. They got it knocked out. I was told on Saturday, actually, that it looked like, off the record, something was probably going to get done. And sure enough, Sunday morning, it was done. What was your reaction to the news? And how do you feel about the decision to move forward with Cronin and Billups?
So you didn't say it. I thought you were going to say it when you were like, I'm not going to lie, Craig. I thought you were going to say, but I was glad to be able to say, I told you so. Like, I texted you like when you're like, can you pod today? I was like, are we just going to get on and say, we told you so? Like, are we done?
No,
even after,
I'm taking the high road.
Yeah, I won't. I mean, told you so. Like the writing was on the wall. It would have made no sense. Like we talked about over and over again. You can't, like, if you didn't fire them when they were awful, how are you going to fire them now, especially after you re-signed the GM that gave him the roster?
Right.
So my only thought was whether or not Chauncey's going to do it. You know, like, to me, I've been saying that for 2 years now. I've been saying it might not be the Blazers' decision. So I think it was smart to make sure that he was still happy. He was still satisfied. We don't know the numbers because that's their policy. My guess is they gave him a raise in 3 years at least, you know, whether there's options or not options. But yeah, I think that when you decided that Cronin was your guy, then why not decide that Billups is your guy? Like, why would you? They seem somewhat married, even though technically Cronin didn't hire him. They did implode the roster at the time. Like, they made these decisions to move forward with Billups. And There were so many opportunities to let him go, you know, and say, hey, you know, this isn't working. I get it. This wasn't what you planned on. He's a better coach today while we're talking, and there's no doubt about it, than he was when Cronin decided to keep him last year. You know what I mean? Like, so if you didn't let him go last year, and you didn't let him go when you were, 13 and 28, of course you re-sign him. And I think Blazer fans should just be happy that they know. They don't have to agree. We know that there's a lot of disagreement when it comes, and look, we both said there's no way to know if Chauncey's a great coach or not. What we've seen this year is that he's gotten a lot better. He could coach. His players buy in. He has respect around the league. He has built a culture that we at least know what he's about. He's about the defensive end, which is no shocker for considering what he was as a player and how he won a championship. So be happy that you have at least no longer to be like, what's going to happen as far as who's running the show. Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups are running the show under this ownership, or trust, or whatever the heck you want to call it. You know, and I do think, you know, I got a few responses on social media about what do we got to do to get this team sold? And I totally get that. You know, I get that frustration. You do not want to be owned by a trust. Nobody should want to be owned by a trust. It's not good. And you shouldn't be be run by a person that had no desire to own an NBA team. Like, people could say Jody Allen is, you know, involved. She's invested. She cares. And I have no reason to say that's not true. But what I can say is Jody Allen would not have bought an NBA basketball team if she were a multi-billionaire.
Right.
That's not her thing. So you want this team to be sold, and that will introduce a whole bunch of questions. But right now, Chauncey earned it. You gave him some things, some boxes to check. He checked them. Player development, check. Culture, check. Improved team play, check. So what are you going to do?
What's next?
I mean, and just picking up the option would have been ridiculously disrespectful and not what you do in the NBA.
Exactly. If they were going to go the option route, you picked that up last year, so now he comes into this season with 2 years, right? And then he has 1 year next year, right? But they didn't even do that. Like they could have done that, and we're going to give you 2. So they put it out there. Okay, this is a potential one and done situation for the rest of your duration here. You have to prove something, and they both, I had conversations with both of them before the season. And they both said, yeah, there's, they have to show some improvement, even though they figure they're not going to be contenders for a playoff berth. That's a tough needle to thread, but they threaded it. And they threaded it because Cronin goes to Chauncey. Our backs are against the wall. Let's figure this out. Chauncey makes some changes. Boom, they win 10 of 11. It literally was just like that. And so, yeah, you have no choice but to bring him back at that point, and you should want to. And it's such a no-brainer. The only reason why I think we're even talking about it like it's not a no-brainer is because there's so many people who've been so down on him. But a lot of people who are down on him were just being unfair because they're mad because the team was losing. And they got to blame somebody. Yep. And if you think every player on the roster is a future star and you're losing, you're going to blame the coach. But the players are young and developing and growing, and so you're going to lose. It's inevitable. But the Vegas over-under was 22 wins. They won 36. That's a huge jump. And you don't usually see that. And so that's a sign that things are going in the right direction. So I'm glad they got it done. One thing I asked today is that we look around the NBA, right? And we see, Malone just got fired. We see teams fire coaches who just won championships or were named coach of the year. It happens. It's just insane what happens with coaches in the NBA. And a lot of it's personality driven, right? Because we all know at the end of the day who runs the show. The players are going to win or lose. The coaches are going to help guide. If you have a team that has 50 win talent, a really good coach can get you to 55 wins and then give you a better chance to beat another 55 win team in a playoff series, maybe, right? But as far as whether or not you're 30 wins or 50 wins, that's 100% the players. So that's why we see all these coaches get blown out all the time, because the coaches are perceived to be pretty interchangeable because it's all a matter of what stars you have, which we saw just in Boston. We saw that in Milwaukee. We've seen it in other places. So anyway, but I asked, about them going through what the last 4 years has been like for those two guys. I mean, Neil gets fired. Cronin takes over as interim. Chauncey's like, oh my God, what's happening? I was hired by one guy. Now he's gone. This other guy's taking over. Bert and Jody are sitting there. And Dame's hurt. CJ's hurt. Now we traded CJ and Norman Powell. And so we go into the next year, see what happens. Oh, more injuries, more problems, win the lottery again. And then last year, all these injuries. And now this year, you're a lame duck coach. They went through a lot together. And the fact that they're going to survive this 4-year run and move together forward is not unheard of, but it's not very common. It's very unusual. Maybe the GM might survive because what usually happens, the GM is building their team and you got to blame somebody for the struggles. You fire the coach and you get a new coach and go that route. They didn't do that. And so they both talked about how they've grown together in their jobs because you had a new head coach and you had a new GM. And they were new at their jobs at this level, at any level, really. So they had to grow together and go through the bumps and bruises together and go through the missteps together with the roster building and then trying to coach and the players changing and then the Dame saga and all that kind of stuff. And to come out of it with the second half that they had, with new contracts, with a promising young roster, and we'll get into more about the future there, it's pretty interesting. And I think it speaks to their relationship. And I thought I think that's really cool in today's day and age, to see that type of relationship. When you look down in Denver, they won a championship together, and they were bickering so bad down there that the owner said, both y'all can go.
Right. I was going to say, they were bickering and they both got fired. Nobody
you guys can't get along, fire you both. Boom. Get out of here. So, yeah, they both talked about that. It's an interesting relationship. There's going to be some tense moments, but like Chauncey said, there are times we're sitting there thinking, man, we got to figure this out. We got to figure out how we're going to do this and figure out how we're going to do that. And so now I feel like their bond is going to be even stronger moving forward because they came through this together. And, I don't know the working relationship between Cronin and Bert and Jody. If they re-signed Cronin and Cronin said, I don't want Chauncey anymore, can we get rid of him? If they would have said, okay. I would imagine, though, that you'd give the GM some authority in that direction, but that didn't happen clearly. So I love that. And maybe I sound like I want to build a fire and sing Kumbaya and hold hands or something like that. But I think sometimes that's missing sometimes in sports. And when you see it, I think it's cool. And so let's see if they can, keep growing together. For all we know, in 4 years, they'll hate each other and one of them get fired. I don't know. But as of right now, I like the bond they've produced and built, and the fact that they seem to be mostly on the same page regarding this team and how they want it to proceed moving forward.
Yeah, I see all that. The one thing I will say is the weirdness of the trust that we talked about, and the lack of a real owner, that plays into them both surviving. I think.
Possibly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, yeah, I think there's, you just mentioned Denver, like, that ownership was like, nah, enough of this. Like we're going
but they
to the
were
playoffs.
Bickering though. These two aren't bickering.
Right. No, but I know that, but maybe right. But that, because what were they going to bicker about? You know what I mean? Like, the only bickering would have been if they were united by the ownership group, let's just call them that, to tell them to get better in that stretch together. Not like Joe didn't go and say, hey, you're going to get fired if you don't win. It was a we, I think.
Our backs are against the wall.
Because let's be honest, that 10 of 11 hurt Joe Cronin more than it hurt Chauncey Billups. Because Joe Cronin lost the chance, or pretty much lost the chance, to get Cooper Flagg. And on the GM level, it's more on him because he made the decisions to trade Damian, to draft Scoot, to trade, to move on and to sign Jeremy Grant. Those were not Chauncey decisions at all. So I think that, and that, that's the one thing your head almost exploded last week when discussing what you think was best for the franchise as far as winning those 10 of 11, going 26 and 36 this year, rather than going,
36
20,
and 46.
36. What did I say? 26 and 36. That does not add up. That does not add up to 82. 10 games under 500. Let's just say it that way. I had that right. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the thing that I think a stronger ownership group would have said, we're tanking. Like it makes a ton of sense to not be mediocre. Or not 100%. Even, they're not mediocre. Like, we want to say they're mediocre because they made these strides because they were supposed to be so bad.
Mediocre. You're at least mediocre.
I think mediocre is 500. Let's be honest.
That's
mediocre
average.
is supposed to...
Do you think average and mediocre are the same? I think mediocre is below average.
I would not find them the same, but in this NBA...
No, I think mediocre is below average. That's highly.
Okay, that's fine. But, all right, I would say mediocre whatever. Is...
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, they're not good. The strides they made didn't even get them in a play-in, which gives them they're in the lower third of the league, which to me is not mediocre. Like, to me, mediocre is in the middle. If you're between 60 and 40 would be mediocre to me, and they're not.
Yeah, their season. Okay, I agree with you on the totality of the season, but as a team, they've reached the mediocre level in the second half.
Fair.
You see what I'm saying?
Fair.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. In fairness, bottom third of the season, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right. But as of right now, I think right now they are at least mediocre to average. That's what I'm saying.
Bottom line, the debate's over. They have a direction.
Right.
They have a direction. And the direction is Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin. And at least if you're a Blazers fan, you can make your own decisions on how you feel about that, but understand it is what it is. There's no more hoping they're getting fired. Like, all that, fire Chauncey, that's not, it didn't happen. Of course, it could still happen next year, maybe, or whatever, but based on what we just talked about. But whatever you want to call ownership, they made a decision that they're sticking with the same leaders. And that means they feel that those guys did enough to prove themselves to get multi-year contracts, which means ownership doesn't want to pay out when they're not working. So they feel it's the direction they want to go.
Yep, 100%. So the players spoke today, exit interviews. A bunch of them spoke.
Chauncey did too.
Chauncey spoke again. Chauncey and Cronin did a press conference before the game, and then Chauncey spoke again after the game. I don't know, I'm not going to say it was 100% because of me, but I was adamant that Chauncey had to speak again because we didn't get a chance to talk to him much about the players and the roster and stuff like that.
It was all about him.
Yeah. So, I'm going to go ahead and say I had some influence because I threw a fit a little bit. I wanted Joe back too. But that didn't happen. But of course, I didn't expect one player to go, man, that's some bull. I can't believe they brought Chauncey back. Get him out of here. But every person, every player talked about how happy they were that he was coming back. And I believe they were all sincere because they all had individual reasons why they should want him back. Denny loves the guy because the guy empowered him to become what he became this season, gave him the freedom and the direction and the leeway to grow and learn and become what he's developed into, which going into next season is extremely promising. Same thing with Tumani. Same thing with Scoot. Even Scoot has ups and downs. He started out slowly, then he was crushing it. I was calling him Scoot Curry for a while. Then he dipped back down a bit, but Scoot said how much of a blessing it is to, have a coach like Chauncey who played point guard in the NBA and who's pouring into him the way he is. I asked Shaden about, he was kind of hard on you. Did you appreciate that? And he said, yes. Shaden famously got benched. Which sometimes can be embarrassing for a player, but he took it like a dog and went out there and played harder. And Chauncey praised him for that. And so he was happy he was coming back on through the roster. So, and that to me is extremely important with a young team. And I asked, I can't remember which person I asked about. I think it was Scoot about, you go through, it was Tumani. You go through all this growth with a guy, right? And was there any fear that, oh no, they might destroy what we've built to this point and then give me a different coach? I now have to learn their nuances and their, idiosyncrasies and things like that, and their strategies and their philosophies, and change everything in my head when I just got to the point where I'm really starting to grasp this. And he was like, yeah, that's something that, he and other people were thinking about. So I just think that's huge too, for morale, for moving forward, for having a sense of identity. And Chauncey has said, a team usually takes on the personality of the team, and he believes this team has taken on his personality as being a defensive first guy, a share the ball guy. We don't have to have one guy scoring 30. We're going to spread it around whoever's night it is. They're going to eat, and we're going to be better that way. And he feels like that's been established. Cronin believes that as well, and the players do as well. So moving that forward is huge, which brings me to my next question to you. Where do they go from here, man? Because, hey, the floor has been raised now. And Joe was asked, you think of playoffs next year? And he said, we got to see how the offseason goes before we truly set expectations. But they didn't like how the season ended. They didn't like that the season was over. They want to keep playing, and that the goal next year is to do to do what they can do to try and definitely get into the postseason. For me, I think the play-in is not a given, but I think it's going to be a really strong shot they make the play-in. The question is, can they make the playoffs? What say you?
Well, I still have no clue where they're going next year. I mean, I just don't. I mean, we finished off
the finals, baby.
But what is, you say the offseason? I mean, so listening to the players speak, Jeremy Grant was the one guy that was like, yeah, this year was bad, and I don't know what's going to happen next year. Simons was a little bit on the fence. Like,
he has 1 year. He has 1 year left on his deal. Simons does,
and he knows that Scoot is on the team,
right?
And heck, right now, when you look at all this pre-draft stuff, where the Blazers are picking, there's a lot of experts thinking they're picking another point guard. Which is crazy. But when you look at the draft, that's where it's strongest. Beyond the top, 5 or so.
Right.
And that just goes to show, wow,
you could not.
But also, why wouldn't they? Don't have it. They don't have their best. They don't have a guaranteed NBA starting point guard. It's sad to say it, but we know it's true.
Okay, Craig. Let's not get crazy. You're dissing my boy now. Come on.
No, well, but Simons doesn't even know if he's a point guard. He's a scoring guard. I'm just saying there's no, and you might trade him. But when two of your highest paid players and your best players don't have a fit on the team, I still don't know what you're doing. I mean, that's just the facts. And 8-2, like 3 of their 5 best players did not play, a lot of the season. 2 of them basically got shut down. And I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know who's starting next year. Like, if you can't get rid of Grant, what are you going to do with him? You can't not start Denny. You can't not start Tamani. If you go in if year 4, Shaden Sharp is not a starter. Like, what world are we living in? Like, and if Scoot's not a starter,
is Shaden a starter?
He has to be. Like,
no,
in my
have
opinion,
to be. No, have to be.
Okay, if he's not, where are you going? Like, mediocrity's. You know what I'm saying? Like, he did.
No. They played their best basketball this season. He was coming off the bench.
So here's the scary part. If you're telling me that's true, then you have had 3 top 10 picks in the last 4 years. And who knows if they're, they'll probably be close to the top 10, maybe in the top 10 this year. But we know, if based on what you're saying, Clinton's not going to start, Scoot's not going to start, Shaden's not going to start. Like, how is that a successful draft?
It's not great, but it's you still know for sure one of them still has a tremendous upside, and that's Sharp for sure. Clingan, come on, Clingan will be in his second year. He'll be 22 or 21.
I'm fine with Clingan.
Same thing with Scoot, will still be super young. And
I'm just saying, if they're
playing behind better players, then I think that's fine, and it could speak to the strength of your bench.
I'm not worried about that. If you go to year 4 and Shaden Sharp and you're still talking about his upside, like, I'm sorry,
but he didn't. Yeah, but come on. Not everyone develops the same. Okay, playing and not starting are 2 different things.
Well, to me, he's got to start.
He's got to play. He doesn't have. Why are people so fixated with starting?
When I say start, the reason why is because if you put the roster out the way we just explained it, there aren't 30 minutes for him.
Yeah, of course there are.
If you have Denny,
are we going to do math? We can do math on the show. No, are we going to do math? You want to do math on the show? We can do math.
Let's try the math.
Do the math.
So, are you bringing Williams back?
We're not talking about center right now. We're not talking about center. There's not 30 for. There's not 30 for Donovan. No, he doesn't play 4. He rarely ever.
So now you have 3 centers. Okay, we'll take them out of the mix.
You got 3. So you got 3 forwards, 3 guards.
You got Kamara, Sharp, Simons, Denny, Scoot, and
Grant.
Now what?
That's 6 players, and you have
Matisse. And Matisse.
Matisse is not on their level. We're talking about the main 6.
Whoa. I disagree
with the main
you.
6.
If they want to win, Matisse Thybulle's going to play. Okay, he's the best defensive player on the team.
Okay.
Again, maybe not. Tomorrow.
Playing a role and being one of the people on the team that gets 30 minutes are 2 different things. Okay. Yes, he does. So anyway, we got the main 6 we're talking about. We're talking 3 guards, 3 forwards, right? Those are the main 6 that we're finding out minutes for. 3 guards, 3 forwards. 4 positions. 4 times 48 is what?
Well, let's see, 40, 50 times 4 is 200. So we're at like what, 190?
It's 190.
196?
196? 196. Okay. So there you go. 196 divided by 6 is what?
6 goes into 190.
32 and a half minutes per person, something like that. Okay,
well, you're telling me Thybulle's not going to play 15 minutes and they're not going to get another guy?
I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying that the main 6 we're talking about, are there minutes for them? And I'm saying there are minutes for them. And we're also dealing with the fact that we know guys are going to get injured. Guys are going to have
that part's true.
Bad games.
You know that.
Guys are going to it's going to go like this anyway. It's not going to be firm. So I'm just saying, if you come into next season and you have those 3 forwards, you're going to be able to find minutes. And I would start Ant, Tumani, Denny, Grant, and Ayton. If Grant still struggles, and Chauncey talked about his struggles today. and talked about it mainly being changes they made offensively, and he was trying to adapt to them, blah, blah, blah. But defensively, when they were on that run, defensively, he and Tumani were killing it. And he thought he was elite at that end of the floor, just as his shooting dipped. But anyway, my point is, minutes can be found, I believe. Depth is a good thing to have. And since no one, although you think Denny has established himself as a legit star, then none of them warrant mandatory 35 minutes. They can get their PT within a more balanced, liberal situation where it kind of flows with the tide of the team. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Well, I am. No, I mean, I think you're living in this world where everyone's cool with that again. I mean, if you're scooting Shaden, you're still not starting.
Then Shaden needs to go shoot 38% from three. He said himself he needs to work on his three-point shooting. He shot 31%. Yes. How are you going to be a two-guard in the NBA talking about I should be starting and shooting 31%? And,
I'm with you on
you're
that.
not a better defender than Tumani. So Tumani's a better defender and shoots a three better than you, but you're a more creative scorer, but you can't play defense and can't shoot three as well. You can't run around crying about minutes. How can you be scooting and complaining about minutes when you're not better than Ant? How can you be Grant or complaining when you're not as better than Denny and valuable as Kamara right now? So everyone just needs to, if they're going to cry, they need to shut the hell up and perform. Perform to earn the minutes. Because if you perform at an elite level, guess what? You're going to stay on the floor for 35 minutes. If you don't, you're going to play 26. And you can't cry if you're playing 26 if you're not balling out, especially when the development stuff is dead. They're trying to get to the playoffs. So they're not going to leave you out there to learn and make mistakes and grow. You're either going to ball or you're going to sit. And that's where the minutes are going to come in. And if you get to a point where all six deserve 35 minutes, you're going to the finals. Because then they're all amazing. They're all amazing. And so no one can stop you because you're too deep and too elite. So I'm not worried about it at all.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Because I can tell you, Simons is not going to be happy if he's playing, 28, 29 minutes a game. He's certainly not going to be happy with that.
Grant's not going to be happy if he's shooting 49 and 40. But if he's shooting 42 and 34, he can't say anything.
Yeah, but his thing, yes, he can. He could say, well, I don't get my flow because they take me out. And I'm worried about it. And we're not running an offense that I'm with. I mean, I'm just saying this is the NBA, man. Like you're living in a world where you you're acting like what I'm saying is crazy talk. Jimmy Butler's traded himself out of 17 situations. Like this is what happens in the NBA. Like they have a lot of power. And that you're saying that like you're trying to say
but
like
Craig,
what I'm
Craig,
saying is nuts.
But Craig,
and it's not.
Okay. If Anthony Simons is struggling and Scoot's outplaying him, okay, and then Simons is mad because his minutes dip, you are going to have no problem trading him because he's not better than your other point guard. So you trade him.
But the problem is you don't trading guys when they're not. It's better to trade them when people still are when they're performing at their highest.
I'm giving you if that scenario plays out.
Sure,
right now,
of course.
Right now, Simons is going to be the best point guard, so he's going to start. But if things flip, then you move Simons. Now, if someone offers you this summer a really great deal for Simons, then you take it this summer. If you feel like Scoot's the guy, but then you better go get another point guard because we don't know if Scoot's the guy, right? So it's kind of dicey. You better make sure that when you make that trade, you have plan B to have another point guard along with Scoot either way. Or
you have belief.
But next year is not about win a championship or bust. It's about trying to get into the postseason. And I think if you go in with a really deep roster, especially when you haven't established true stars, I think that's the way you're going to be able to do it because you're going to be able to survive injuries better than most teams. So anyway, so do you think they're going to make the postseason or not?
I think they'll compete for a play-in, but I think the West will be harder next year than this year, and you're not going to be able to compete for a play-in 10 games below probably. And
last year, 41 and 41 did not get you in. This year, you have two teams that got in under 500.
I just think we talked a little bit about you had great stats about they haven't been they've 2-13 against
winning teams. Yeah, okay, let's get to that part.
Teams like so and that didn't technically did they won today, so with the Lakers playing a BG League team. So that'll technically give them a third win against a winning team, but it doesn't count. I'm just saying, like, we could look back and see that other than that 10 of 11, most of their wins were against bad teams or losing teams.
Well, here's before the 10 of 11, they actually pulled off a bunch of impressive wins. Remember, they beat Denver, they beat Minnesota twice. I think they beat Memphis maybe once. They beat there was a couple other teams. Like, they pulled off some wins where it was like Mike Richmond, Mike Richmond.
Sure.
We had a running thing going where every time I would say there's no way they're gonna win tonight,
that's when they'd win.
Or I say there's no way they're gonna lose tonight. And
they lose.
And they lose. And he started joking that he was fading my picks to put his dollar through college. And it was kind of creepy for like 3 weeks. Because I literally went like 0 for 8 saying there's no way. Some of those were games I thought there's no way they're gonna win, and they flipped and won. But in the second half, they struggled against good teams, and most of the wins were not only against bad teams, but bad teams who were tanking.
Trying to lose
on top of everything else, right? So that is the red flag. Now, okay, so the 3 teams that finished behind them, Utah, Pelicans, Spurs. All things considered, Spurs and Pelicans are better when healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when healthy. You're taking the Pelicans over the Blazers in a series when healthy. You're taking the Spurs with De'Aaron Fox and Wemby in a series when healthy. The Jazz are the only team. So they not only have to climb up, they have to deal with the fact that 2 teams behind them just had horrific injury-riddled season. And they're coming, likely behind you to chase you. The Kings are going to be solid. Grizzlies, clearly. Warriors still be good. Timberwolves. I mean, it's deep.
So I mean, the Suns are a mess. So gosh knows what's going to happen with them. But if they do keep that same roster, odds of them going 36 and 46 again are well. I mean, it might happen again because all those teams. But they still have Kevin. They still have 3 guys.
They might not have
that are better.
Though. They might.
No, of course they might not have any of them. Let's be honest. We have no idea what's going to happen there. And something else might happen where another team just says the heck of it. But the Kings are building a young roster. They should be better. They shouldn't be worse. And the Grizzlies should be better. The Warriors.
The Kings might lose Sabonis though. Sabonis is already making. And Levine and DeRozan aren't exactly young.
They're not.
No,
they're not. And they're. I mean, DeRozan and Levine's knees are older than the average, whatever age he is. His knees are 5 years older. So, but it's just really hard. And like you said, I mean, there's no way the Spurs would have, if Wemby didn't get hurt after that trade, they were going to try to make the playoffs and they were going to make the play-in.
Oh,
probably. Yeah. You know what I mean? So then they decided to tank. And the Pelicans, I mean, they just couldn't put 5 guys on the court at once. Now, they might never be able to do it again.
Right.
I mean, Zion might never play. I mean, like, it's crazy. And CJ is now, not young. And he went from a guy that almost, that had 6-7 years where he never got hurt except for like a punctured lung, and to a guy that now just can't stay healthy. So, but no, I think it's going to be hard I think they could win more games next year and not make the play-in. But, to me, the play-in is kind of crap. Like it's
a step.
Not real.
It's not real playoff, right?
It's not real playoffs. I mean, it's freebies. Like, let's do this so that guys like us and fans out there are like excited, and they look at somehow Blazer fans are looking at a 36 and 46 season as a success, and the players are talking about how they enjoyed playing meaningful games. Like, what? And I get it because it's true. Like, they had a chance to get in the play-in, which of course is like, you get in there for what purpose, right? To get shellacked, probably, and I mean, now there's some teams that feel like the Warriors got in the play-in and they're not feeling like they're going to get shellacked. And why would they? They have maybe the greatest shooter of all time, and they have multiple All-Stars in the team, and they were 14 games over 500.
Exactly.
They were good. They were 2 games away from winning 50, which is in the NBA standard is that's contender level. Like, that's just the way the NBA. I mean, sure, you have two teams that You have 3 teams this year that won over 60, which is elite.
Yeah,
but when you win over
50 is a number, like 10 wins was in the NFL at 10-6,
right?
Right.
You win 50 games,
90 games in MLB,
95 games almost, right?
Correct.
You know, like that's a good basketball team. There's a big difference between, you know, winning 48 games and being in the play-in and winning 36 and feeling like, well, we almost got in. Like you're not on the same planet. So
no, I agree.
That's where I'm at with my thought process. And here's the thing. If you're where you were with the Blazers, it'll be interesting to me. So let's say they're on the other side of it where the Spurs tanked and won 34. You know what I mean? Like the Blazers played hard and won 36. So if you're in a place where you have no chance at the play-in and you're at, you know, you're 10 games on, you're 20, let's say you're 25 and 35. Why would you not tank? You know what I mean? Like, why? The NBA tells you to tank. I mean, that's the recipe. There's no point in not making the playoffs barely. Like they give you better.
But the plan was put in to make more teams try and
right. But if you're not gonna, that's what I'm saying. You're 25 and 35 next year, right?
Gotcha.
Or even if you're 20, you know,
they were 13 and 28, and they almost got in this year. So 25 and 35, you're still in it.
That's what, but maybe not next year is what I'm saying. And then what do you do? And then how do you evaluate that? I mean, the difference between where the Spurs are and the Blazers are is that the Blazers tried and won 2 more games, and the Spurs didn't try and lost 2 less games.
And the Jazz Spurs have an all-star and a super freak.
There you go. See what I'm saying? Like there you are. And they were like, you know what? Let's go. Let's just get another one. Like, let's try for another one. Like, we could get Cooper Flag, and now what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, and they got a much better, they got a chance. And if they made the play-in, they would have had a much less chance. So I just don't know how to evaluate the next year as far as, like, I think they could be better and have a worse record and then make a decision to tank. And then you're like, what? Because you know what? Next year, if you're Chauncey and you're Cronin, you could tank because you got a multi-year deal. You know what I mean? Like it's different. This year they had to win 10 of 11.
Which is so misguided. We beat that to death last time, but misguided.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, you can't, me, you can't evaluate, like, do I think they could go 45 and 37 next year? I don't see that.
Not with this roster, no.
No, not unless you get some crazy jumps. Unless Denny is consistently a triple-double threat and is the guy that I have in my head, and that's real. You know what I mean? And not unless Scoot takes a huge jump and shoots consistently 37%, doesn't turn the ball over. Shaden Sharp shoots 8% and is averaging 24 a game. You trade Grant, you know what I mean, and get something. I just don't see it. So, but that doesn't mean it's a failure because they could still get better.
Right. Now there's, some grumbling out there about, they should have made a run at, Michael Malone or whatever, or Taylor Jenkins. Look, man, Michael Malone is 5'10" and 394 with the NBA title, who's just coaching one of the greatest players in the game. The odds of him saying, "Oh, I want to go to Portland and coach that team," are not very high. They're not with uncertain ownership.
Yeah,
right. Still a newbie GM who hasn't proved himself really, and no star on the roster, and no real history of being able to go out and trade for or sign a star. So he's going to look at the situation and think, yeah, I'm not going to be able to necessarily win there. And I'm going to have options. I believe someone like him is going to have options.
Of course.
And so he's going to wait for something better. Taylor Jenkins, I don't know if he would have as many options or not, but again, he's had some success. And, if you go to a place,
is Taylor Jenkins better than Chauncey Billups? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know at all. Exactly.
I mean, I know that I know Malone. If you were telling me coaching, if I'm in the playoffs right now with 2 equal rosters, I'm probably going to pick Malone.
Yeah, because of what you've seen. But
yes,
we're judging
and his dad. Look, and his dad is Brendan Malone. Like I have a lot of respect and faith in the Malone family. You know what I mean?
And that's fine.
That guy's a career coach. He did not play, obviously, in the NBA like Chauncey. And in the end, Chauncey might end up being better. But, I mean, that guy's been a coach since he was 2.
I hear you.
Pat Riley was at the helm. You know what I mean? Like, that's I have trust in that.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But we both know that if Chauncey's coaching Denver and Malone's coaching Portland, Denver in 4, maybe 5. Not 5.
Of course, right.
I'll go 5. Okay. So that's my point. So you're still growing as a franchise, and you're not a destination spot.
I'm going 4.
So, let me ask you, when was the last time the Blazers hired a marquee coach? Have they ever hired what you would call a marquee coach?
Well, I think that Nate McMillan was a high level, hire.
Was he?
Like,
what had he done before he came to Portland? He was a high level name.
I mean, I guess, PJ Carlesimo, he was a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't, I think that PJ Carlesimo was. I think Paul Allen tried to hire whoever. I mean, I think Maurice Cheeks, was,
Nate was 212. Nate was 212 and 183 in Seattle when he came to Portland. So he was.
I'm just saying, like, he was a well-known commodity.
He had made the playoffs. So he had a nice track record. Not great, but nice. I wouldn't call that marquee. It's like he won a championship, right? Maurice Cheeks, had he even been a head coach before? I don't think he had. Right? Was it Portland's first job?
Was that his first gig?
His first job, head coach, was with Portland.
Okay.
You said PJ.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, he was a pretty.
Did PJ come from college?
Yeah, he was
Seton Hall.
Seton Hall, and he was the man. You know what I mean? He was the. He didn't win it, but he got to the finals.
Yeah. Okay,
so he was a Dan Hurley of the time.
Right, a college hype guy. There's a hire right there, and he was here for 3 years. So it's not like they've gone out before and been able to attract that guy. Is what I'm saying. And so the odds of them doing that,
I would say that attracting PJ Carlesimo, and obviously Paul Allen was there with money and a roster and promises. And I also think Nate McMillan, stealing him from Seattle was a big deal. In the sense that,
I mean, again,
with getting a Seattle guy.
Again, we're not talking about someone who is destined for the Hall of Fame and has a championship.
Yeah, but there aren't a lot of guys like that get hired again. You know what I mean? Like that many. Look, the Knicks hired Phil Jackson and, Pat Riley, like back in the day.
There you
Phil
go.
Jackson
That's
was
two.
His ass.
That's 2.
Actually, we hired Larry Brown. People forget because he sneezed.
There you go. That's 3. There you go.
Yeah, right. I'm out. I'm out. I've made a terrible example.
That was horrible. They stole the guy from the Suns whom the Bulls wanted. Oh my God, the fast break king guy didn't really work in New York very well.
Nobody worked in New York.
And
I don't know who you.
And he applied. Oh my, D'Antoni.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see, you guys hired
that
him.
Wasn't a disaster. We had one good year with him.
You tried to say good year. That's 4 Knicks hires that were marked.
Yeah, no, it's a terrible example.
Yeah, horrible example.
Terrible
anyway,
example.
You get my point. Now, again, you have to be fair to coaches, and they have to have the horses, man. They just have to.
Of course.
And Chauncey, to me, if you told me everything that was going to happen with the Blazers when Chauncey took over, this is about the record I would expect. I don't think it's below expectation. All right, real quick.
I think the Blazers, like I've said forever, I think the Blazers should be lucky that Chauncey didn't want out.
Yeah, and
I think that,
and people
to
need to
me,
understand
that's always been the same.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So let me go through the week. So early in the week, I was told that Chauncey's representatives were probably going to be in town and to discuss some things. And that's when I came on this show and I said that something could happen this week, especially after Cronin got his job, right? Then at the game Friday, the Warriors game, I spoke to someone and asked them, someone in the organization, and asked them what do you think is going to happen. They said they honestly didn't know, but they definitely believe that management wanted him back, but it's a two-way street.
There you go.
Right? And he has to want to come back. And I said, well, in my conversations with Chauncey for the story I did several weeks ago, he said flat out that, he wanted to see this through. Like he definitely wants to, he's poured a lot of work and effort into this team. And so to just be separated from it is just, from his standpoint, I think would be sad. Unless he got a chance to go to to Phoenix. But at the same time, Phoenix is kind of a mess, right? So do you really want to go to that? So there was that part of it where he, may have another job offer or be more than willing to sit out a year. But at the end of the day, he wanted to be back and they wanted him back. The price just had to be right, which was another talking point that came up. And the price was right. He definitely expected a raise, and he got it. So good for all of them. Now, let's get to two more things before we sign off here. Because there's a lot. We have a lot to talk about with this roster and what the players said. I'm going to be writing a ton of articles on Oregon Live in the next week or two, 3. And so we're going to come on here. We're going to talk about those things and break it down by position and get deep into the weeds on each position, et cetera, et cetera. But real quick, lottery odds. The Blazers, by beating the Lakers today, and the Suns losing to the Kings, finished tied for 9th worst record, which means they share the percentage points, which is 4.5 for 9th and 3 for 10th. They're going to have a coin toss. One will get 3.8, one will get 3.7. As far as jumping into the top 20, it's 20 and 13, I think. They'll split that, and each gets 17.5 or 17 or whatever, something like that. That'll be decided later. So had they lost the Lakers today...
You mean top 10, not top 20.
Sorry, top 20. Yeah, top 10, sorry. If they lost the Lakers today, they would have a 4.5 and a 20. Instead, it's going to be cut down to about 3.8 or whatever and 17%. And I did the lottery simulator 16 times today. They leaped to number 1 once. They went to 2. They went to 4. And the rest, they stayed between 9 and 12. So take that for what it's worth. All right. And Factor Fentress. You ready?
Yep, hitting.
All right. The Blazers got to make some moves, bro. Like, as much as I sat here and just argued about the minutes are there and everything like that. And this is why you love, this is Craig, this is why you love me, and this is why you get me. You get me. Because you can put me on any...
I think I said to argue with you. I actually believe him.
You can
put me on what you were saying is right.
Any side of the fence, and I can argue that side of the fence. I pride myself in that. I remember I told King Go that once. He goes, "Oh, so you mean you are full of shit?" I was like, "What? No, that's not what I meant at all." Anyway, while I do believe they can find the minutes, I do believe that. While I do believe the depth and everything like that will work out fine, that the players will figure it out themselves as they develop and grow and who play. At the end of the day, they need a dude. And if they can go out this summer and pull off something, take the contracts of Grant and Williams and those future Bucks picks and your future picks and maybe this year's pick and go out and find at least one more adult. By adult, I mean someone 28, 29 who's a baller, approved. That doesn't have to be an all-star, but just a baller. And then see if you can find some kind of at least CJ level player, a veteran, borderline star, borderline all-star. If you do that, I think they have a great shot at making the playoffs. If not, I think they're going to be struggling to try and get into the play-in. I think if they stay healthy, they get in because there's going to be other teams that are getting healthy in fall, just like we just talked about the Spurs and the Pelicans this year. That could happen with 2 other teams, right? As long as it doesn't happen to you, I think they're going to be in the play-in next year. The playoffs, different story. I just don't. There's no way they're going to finish in top 6. Could they win the play-in if everything goes right? I don't know. If they finish 41 and 41 and get in the playoffs and play a 48-win team, are they going to beat that team? I'm not sure I'm buying it unless they have that dude. Now, Chauncey said people talk about going to get a star, but sometimes you got to grow that star. You got to raise that star, like Denver did with Jokic, like Milwaukee did with Giannis. What was the other example he brought up, which was a good example? I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But anyway, sometimes that does happen, and maybe that's happening here. I just don't see it for next year. I don't see Denny being that guy next year. I don't see Shaden being that guy or Ant being that guy. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, but not next year. But if they want to be serious, they got to go get that dude. So my fact or Fentress is fact. If they stand pat, plans a possibility, but not guaranteed. Also, fact, if they can go out and add 2 more dudes, they'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I just said. Like, I don't like, you just want me to agree with what I had said before? Like, yeah, absolutely. If they add 2 more players that are better than what they have now, they're going to be a good team. I mean, yeah.
Why do you have to say it like that? See, when I say it, it's like,
because I get
a big deal. Listen to the point I'm making. You're like,
Because you spent 25 minutes telling me I was a crazy person.
2 plus 2 is 4, Fentress. Good job. Wow, you passed basic math there. You want to go put it on the board? Yeah.
That's people sometimes will be like, probably be like, why does Fentress have Craig Birnbach do this? This is why. This is why. Because I'm one of a few people that'll be like, yeah, what you just said, you just argued against this. You made me look like...
I didn't exactly argue against it.
You kind of did. You're like, there's plenty of minutes, and if you have this team, they're going to make it. They're going to be awesome.
I
they're
said
going to win a championship.
But I said the play-in, though. But I do agree.
No. You said if they're all good enough to make 36 to play 36
they all
minutes,
won 35 minutes, they're going to win a championship. Yeah, that means they're all star caliber. Anyway.
Yeah, well, not if you're not good. Yeah, of course. I mean, my thing is, I don't know how you do that. And Joe Cronin has.
They have stuff. They got picks. They got the Milwaukee stuff. They got contracts.
Let's go.
Look at all the movement we saw this past year. Look at all the star players that changed. Try and get in the mix for one of those. That's what I'm saying. Someone's moving. Jump in there. Jump in there. Hey, we got this, that.
I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. My thing is, if you did all that, if you traded, you dumped out because you were sick of winning 50 games every year and not being a title contender and only making one Western Conference Finals, and Damian Lillard wasn't going to take you to the promised land even with pieces. That's what you said. So you got to, because if not, I mean, we did the math before. Like, this team with Damian Lillard, if you don't trade, you could have still had, still gotten Denny. You still, could have gotten Tamani. Like, this team could be a really good team with Damian Lillard. Like, you don't think Damian Lillard would like playing with Tamani Kamara?
Oh, he loves it.
He would love it. He's like, oh, that dude just sits in the corner, plays defense, so I don't have
Protects
to.
me.
God knows, right?
Yeah.
And he's tough as nails. And when I blow it, he picks up and, down the stretch, I don't have to guard the best play. Like, I don't have to guard the point guard if I don't want to. You don't think he'd like to have that? You don't think he'd like to have, Denny, the guy he never had, which is a little help, but who's big, of course. So, you've got to do something. You can't come back with this roster, despite what Aaron Fentress argued about plenty of minutes. You can't. You have to show the players that you've picked them, and they have to prove you right. And you have to go get players that are better. You have to get players that are better. And I don't care. Like, yes, I would have no problem telling Shaedon Sharpe, if you can't play, good enough, if you can't outplay Devin Booker, then you don't play. But like, I have no problem telling Scoot, say similar, like, pick a young guy. If you're not better than SGA, you're not going to play. But like, I do have a problem. I think it is a problem to tell Simons, like, yeah, you're probably a little better than Scoot, but he's a lot younger, and right now we got to figure it out.
No, they're not going to say that, and I never said they're going to say that. And
okay, well, even if you flip it. So if you flip it, if you're Scoot, they're like, sorry, man, I know you want to play more, and you want to start.
Earn it.
I know that, but what I'm saying is, like, it's not like Simons is at that level. Like, you want a guy better, or you want Simons to play better, not like he did this year. So I'm with you 100%. They need to get better, and there's no future for Jeremy Grant on this team. There's no future for Rod Williams on this team. I trade Thibault because I think Matisse has people who want that, and there's no place for him right now other than, he can help you win games if it's close and you're in the fourth quarter. But I don't want to take those minutes for that guy. Get that guy later. I'm not sitting Kamara to play Thibault right now, play Matisse right now, but who's better? In the last 5 minutes, I don't know. They're both pretty darn good at the same thing. So I'm with you. They got him. And Joe Cronin now knows that the expectation is for him I hope part of the conversation was you bought the groceries. You know what I mean? Like, make the dinner now. Like, you got that. You got these ingredients. You told us this was the right thing to do and that you've set up all these assets. You at one point said you were going to put all the chips in, and that didn't happen. Well, throw some chips in. Start playing. Start bluffing. Like, do what you got to do. Win some hands, because everybody in the Blazer fans should be sick and tired of not knowing if they want to win.
Oh, they know now.
From the get-go.
They want to win now. But how much? What you're saying. Okay.
What I'm saying is, if you're 25 and 28 next year, and you have and your best chance is to make the play-in or get back in the lottery, why would you I mean, like, you might dump again. You didn't this year, and you should have. I'm just saying, like, we've said it from the get-go. Everyone, you had that thing with Bill. The whole thing is, the way to win in the NBA is with talent and players, and you get those talent and players usually in the top 5, or at least the top 8. You don't fall into Jokic's and Giannis's very often. You know, those two guys that he mentioned, like, to me, those are the worst examples, because, like, those are guys that you're like, holy crap, everyone missed on them. But, you know, people don't miss on a lot of top 5 players. You know, they just don't, because they're and when they do,
Shea was the other one he mentioned. That's right, Shea.
Right. I mean, again, like, we're looking, but look, when you look at the best players in the NBA, many of them are top 5 picks, right?
Is it Shai or Shea?
Shea, Shai.
I hear people call him Shai all the time.
Well, maybe, you know.
I think it's Shea.
I don't know. Everyone calls him by his initials, man. So just do that.
What pick was he? He was
11th. Yeah. So
that's crazy. Think about that. 3 of the top players in the league: 11th, 15th, and 2nd round. That's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, 11th isn't that bad. You know, like, yes.
11th picks are usually not superstars.
Well, you bet. Get them now. You got a very good chance at the 11th pick.
God, he's shooting 52%.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Anyway. All right. We will come back soon with more in-depth arguing by position. I will come up with another fact of Fentress in which I contradict whatever I said a half hour prior on the next episode of the Blazer Focus Podcast. Chauncey is staying. Let's move this thing forward, baby.